America by June 1st, just 2 weeks from now, as this country now reopens. Among the states starting to reopen, parts of New York. And now comes news of a barber who the governor says ignored the guidelines before staying open, saying the barber now has coronavirus and has infected more than a dozen customers. Several states in the Northeast revealing their plans for reopening and what does it mean for the Memorial Day holiday. Tonight, the news from Texas just coming in now after reopening there, now setting new records in the number of cases and fatalities. And tonight, with 36 million Americans now out of work, the news of retail sales now plunging more than 16%. That is a record. It was worse than expected. President Trump making news today again on vaccines and that end of the year goal. The defense secretary saying it will be ready to treat Americans and our partners abroad. But when pressed later, the Pentagon said it's a goal, not a promise. The president, surrounded by his top health advisors, they were wearing masks today. 24 hours after the CDC issued its own warning, tonight the new global alert about that dangerous condition affecting children. It's now believed here in the U.S. more than 200 reported cases in 19 states. And the frustration tonight for so many parents when it comes to testing, when it doesn't give a clear answer. Meantime, tonight, the growing questions about testing overall. How accurate are the tests here in the U.S.? The false negatives, a new analysis suggesting there is a small window for accurate results. And the FDA now warning about the rapid test being used by the White House. The president was asked about that today. Overseas tonight, we are now following that promising news about the vaccine in trials at Oxford. What they have now revealed, and you'll want to hear this tonight, and what are their next steps? The other news this Friday, the severe storms tonight, a tornado watch across 5 states as we come on the air. The earthquake shutting down parts of I-95.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here as we near the end of another week together. And just before we came on the air tonight, the head of the CDC and that new estimate just in, revealing the latest models now forecast the number of deaths from coronavirus here in the U.S. will exceed 100,000 by June 1st. Of course, that's just a couple of weeks from now. Tonight, as this country now begins to reopen, the toll on so many families already. More than 85,000 lives now lost. President Trump today making news with his hope for a vaccine by year's end. The Pentagon later making clear that this is a goal, not a promise. 48 states already beginning to ease restrictions, many crowding into some Texas venues, though new numbers in just late today from Texas showing a dramatic increase in cases and the highest 2-day death toll there yet. And in New York State, the governor now saying a barber who stayed open despite the state orders now has the virus. The governor saying at least a dozen customers now have the virus too. A sign of how difficult all of this reopening in different parts of the country will be. There are new concerns tonight about testing in the U.S. How accurate are the tests, the false negatives, and the new analysis and what it shows about a small window, apparently, for accurate results. A lot of Americans who thought they had it, then had a negative test, will want to hear more on this tonight. So we're going to guide you through it all on a Friday evening, and we begin here with ABC's Whit Johnson, leading us off from New York.
Tonight, as more states begin to reopen, including parts of New York, the epicenter of the crisis, an alarming new headline. One barber in Kingston, New York, staying open. The hairstylist testing positive for coronavirus. The governor saying he spread the disease to multiple customers and that it serves as a warning.
Barber in Kingston was operating in defiance of the close order. Infected, I think, over a dozen people. You can't really socially distance and do a haircut.
This as summer-like heat draws more people out of their homes. 4 northeastern states are now promising to open their beaches by Memorial Day.
Got a lot of businesses that's losing money. People ain't working. I think it should be open, wear your face mask, and open.
From New York to Connecticut to Delaware and the Jersey Shore, where today the state hit a new grim milestone, more than 10,000 deaths from COVID-19.
This week is a test. We're going to look how many people come, how controllable it was.
Today, New York taking its first steps toward reopening. Just 5 regions in the central and northern part of the state qualifying for phase 1, allowing construction, manufacturing, and retail limited to pickup and drop-off.
We need to get the cash flow in. I need to get guys back to work.
But while some parts of the state are slowly getting back to work, businesses in hard-hit areas like New York City will just have to wait, where the governor extended the stay-at-home order through at least the end of May. Tonight, at least 48 states now easing restrictions, but none of them reporting consecutive 14-day drops in new cases. And in 4 of those states, infections are actually on the rise. Texas tonight reporting the deadliest 48 hours yet, 2 weeks after easing restrictions following scenes like this at a crowded Houston restaurant. Governors desperate to lessen the economic pain. More than 36 million Americans filing for unemployment. And today the government says retail sales plunged a record 16.4% last month. Sales at restaurants and bars slashed nearly in half.
It is the difference between potentially being able to support oneself long term as a business and not.
In Florida, the governor says starting Monday, restaurants can expand to 50% capacity and gyms can reopen. And tonight, new signs of hope out west. The Navy hospital ship Mercy heading home to San Diego, 49 days after arriving in Los Angeles to alleviate the burden on hospitals. And the roar of the Air Force Thunderbirds soaring over Southern California today, honoring our healthcare heroes.
Extremely powerful pictures. Whit Johnson with us live here in New York City and along the beach there. And I know there'll be changes in the days ahead. They want people to be very careful as they begin to reopen the beaches in other parts of New York State. But all of this comes tonight with that new estimate from the head of the CDC just out before we came on. Those sobering new projections as this country reopens. They're trying to prepare Americans to recognize that the toll could reach more than 100,000 by June 1st.
And David, the CDC director, saying in a tweet tonight that 12 different projection models are now showing that death toll exceeding 100,000 in just the next couple of weeks. Meantime, here in New York, where the state is reopening beaches, access is going to be limited to 50% capacity, and all group activities, including sports, will be prohibited. David?
Yeah, we've all got to look out for one another. Whit Johnson leading us off tonight. Thank you. The president surrounded by his top medical advisors today. They had masks on. The president did not, but he did reiterate his goal of a vaccine by year's end. So how likely is that, and what the Pentagon made clear shortly after? Here's our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl, tonight.
As the president spoke in the Rose Garden today, the health experts standing behind him wore masks, while the 2 cabinet secretaries did not.
I gave them the option. They could wear it or not. So you can blame it on me.
The president announced he is putting former drug company executive Moncef Slaoui in charge of the effort to develop a vaccine for the coronavirus.
It's called Operation Warp Speed. That means big and it means fast.
Previous vaccines have taken years to develop, but the president has gone back and forth on whether a COVID vaccine could get done before the end of this year. Today, he said this.
Its objective is to finish developing and then to manufacture and distribute a proven coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible. Again, we'd love to see if we could do it prior to the end of the year.
Defense Secretary Esper seemed to vow it will be done.
We will deliver, by the end of this year, a vaccine at scale to treat the American people and our partners abroad.
Later, the Pentagon clarified, saying it is a goal, not a promise. This all comes 24 hours after the doctor who until recently had been leading the charge to develop a vaccine told Congress a vaccine would likely take longer.
A lot of optimism is swirling around a 12 to 18 month time frame. If everything goes perfectly, we've never seen everything go perfectly.
So let's get right to John Karl with us live from Washington again tonight. And John, President Trump hoping a vaccine will be approved and distributed by the end of the year. He has said this before, but even his new point man on vaccine development acknowledges that this really could be a difficult goal.
In fact, Mr. Slaoui said just yesterday that Dr. Fauci's assessment that it would take at least 12 to 18 months just to develop the vaccine represents an ambitious timeline. But even so, Mr. Slaoui said that he would not have taken this job if he did not think the goal of developing a vaccine and producing some 300 million doses by the end of the year was not achievable. David?
John Karl with us live from Washington. John, thank you. And 24 hours after the CDC issued its own new warning tonight, the new global alert from the World Health Organization about that dangerous condition affecting children. Here in the U.S. tonight, authorities are now tracking more than 220 reported cases in 20 states. And now the frustration for so many parents when testing doesn't give a clear answer. Stephanie Ramos back on this story again tonight.
Tonight, growing reports of that rare inflammatory illness in children linked to coronavirus. ABC News identifying at least 220 possible and confirmed cases in 20 states, plus D.C. More than 100 cases in New York, where 3 children have died.
Other states should expect what we have seen. We've noticed that it's 4 to 6 weeks after the peak of infections in the state.
The CDC sending that urgent alert for doctors to look out for patients with fever, inflammation, multiple organs involvement, and infection or exposure to COVID-19 within 4 weeks. Today, the World Health Organization sounding the alarms. Brittany Bowler wants to know if that's what sent her son Titus to the ER, starting with a fever.
The second day, he was just crying about his tummy. It was like his tummy was just hurting and hurting.
In a matter of days, her son's fever climbing to 104, and he was vomiting.
His lips were like super red and swollen. His eyes were bloodshot red. He was breathing really fast.
Titus was treated for Kawasaki disease and recovered, testing negative for COVID-19. But his mother now wants him tested for those antibodies. Titus's symptoms strikingly similar to 9-year-old Bobby Deans in upstate New York, who wound up in the ICU, later testing positive for the virus.
We didn't get Bobby to the doctors within 24 hours of when we did. They said we very well could have lost him. And that's
Stephanie Ramos with us tonight, and Stephanie, I know both boys thankfully recovering, but both families really do want to raise awareness.
Exactly, David. Bobby's parents are stressing the importance of early detection. The American Academy of Pediatrics is telling parents if they see any of the symptoms, stomach pain, rashes, fever, call your doctor. David.
All right, Stephanie, on this for several nights now, we thank you. Those parents frustrated there over tests and results that might not always be accurate and the confusion that can cause. Well, tonight, the new analysis here that tackles false negatives across this country from the testing and suggesting there might be a small window, actually, for accurate results. Also tonight, the FDA with a warning about a key rapid test, and it's the one being used by the White House. And so Kaylee Hartung tonight on the testing.
Tonight, a new analysis from Johns Hopkins University suggests the window for accurate testing, a critical tool to stop the spread of coronavirus, is limited. Researchers finding after 3 days of symptoms, false negatives were reported 20% of the time. On the day symptoms appeared, 38%. But the number of false negatives jumping to 100% when patients were tested after exposure to the virus, but 4 days before exhibiting symptoms. And tonight, the rapid COVID-19 test used by the White House to screen those closest to the president is under scrutiny. The FDA is now alerting the public after it received 15 reports from healthcare professionals and patients suggesting the test may return false negative results. The president asked today about one preliminary study finding Abbott ID Now missed as many as 48% of positive cases.
Do you have any concerns about the Abbott tests, given some of the new numbers that have come out?
No, Abbott's a great test. It's a very quick test, and it can always be very rapidly double-checked.
The FDA cautions scientific studies about the test's accuracy have limitations, and those researchers acknowledge they didn't use the test machine as it's intended to be used. Abbott says its test can detect a COVID infection in a matter of minutes, and the president has repeatedly praised it.
That's a 5-minute test, highly accurate.
In a statement, Abbott saying, while we understand no test is perfect, test outcomes depend on a number of factors. And when used as instructed, they say, the test works.
We continue to recommend its use or to have it available for use.
So let's get to Kaylee Hartung with us live tonight from Los Angeles. And Kaylee, we hear over and over again how important testing is, frustration about these potential negative results, and also frustration from Americans who are still telling us that they have found it difficult to even get a test.
And David, this analysis shows that it's not just important to get a test. It matters when you get tested. So if you have symptoms and get negative results, it's recommended that you get another test. David.
All right, Kaylee Hartung with us tonight. Kaylee, thank you. We reported here just a moment ago on the president's hope for a vaccine by year's end. Well, tonight there is promising news about the vaccine in trials at Oxford and what the trials have now revealed in monkeys. Of course, the obvious question tonight, what are the next steps? Here's Maggie Rulli reporting in from London.
The study is small, but the results are promising. 6 rhesus monkeys were given a single dose of the vaccine. 14 days later, some of them developed protective antibodies against COVID-19. 28 days later, all of them did. The monkeys were then exposed to high levels of the virus, and the vaccine kept the virus from replicating in the lungs and appeared to prevent damage to them. And injecting the vaccine, which contains a weakened version of the virus, did not cause COVID-19 to form in the monkeys.
What we've seen so far is it works just as we would hope for, and it works nicely.
Success in monkeys is a key hurdle. They share so much of our DNA, but many vaccines that protect monkeys fail on humans.
I finally got the vaccination done today.
Human trials began last month with more than 1,000 volunteers injected so far.
We can be the people who solve this awful, awful pandemic.
There's a lot of hope surrounding this one and multiple trials around the world. So let's get right to Maggie. She's with us live from London. And Maggie, the obvious question for folks at home tonight, how soon before we hear about results in those human trials when it comes to this particular trial?
And well, David, those researchers at Oxford say they hope to see signs this vaccine is working in humans in just a few weeks. But even if everything goes well, it will still be months before they can roll out a vaccine. David?
Months away, but still a lot of hope tonight around the world. Maggie, thank you. When we come back here on the news tonight, the tornado watch across 5 states as we're on the air this evening as we track severe storms from Texas right up into the Northeast. We also have news on that F-22 crashing during a training exercise. News coming in on that tonight.
Guys, figuring out who counts in the 2020 census isn't complicated.
Everyone living in your home on April 1st counts. My aunt and uncle who live with us count. My best friend who sleeps over every Friday night doesn't count.
My new baby sister, she counts.
My mom's best friend who's been living with us, she counts. Our dog, Mr. BB, should count, but he doesn't.
Complete the census online, by phone, or by mail. Shape your future. Start here at 2020census.gov.
Here's the thing about managing multiple clouds for your business. When you've got public clouds and private clouds and hybrid clouds, things can get a bit cloudy for you. But now, there's the Dell Technologies Cloud. Powered by VMware. A single hub for a consistent operating experience across all your clouds. That should clear things up.
If you have moderate to severe psoriasis, little things can become your big moment. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not a cream. It's a pill that treats plaque psoriasis differently. With Otezla, 75% clearer skin is achievable. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. It may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts, or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Upper respiratory tract infection and headache may occur.